right. Who's ready for the Word of God this morning? I hope we all are. Um, this morning's service, it's going to be beneficial to some more than others. Some of you are going to be able to work in this issue more than others, and some of us, the time has already passed. And you got to live with the choices you have made already. But I pray that everybody here this morning will take this service, and if it applies to you and you're able to work in this area of your life, that you do your hardest in working in this area. Let's turn to Mark 1. Mark chapter 1, I believe we're starting in verse 9. Is that right? Verse 9. Yeah. Mark 1, verse 9 is where we're going to be starting. A number of years ago, I was scanning a man that came into the ER room. He had to get a scan. He was very sick in his body. And as he's going through, I strike up a conversation with him. And he is, he's very sad. I thought it was because he's sick. And he said, as we talk, he said, unfortunately, I may have to, in a year from now, bury my son because of the sickness and ailments in his body. We started talking. His son has a neurological disorder it's almost like a convulsion or a seizure that he gets because his brain is sending signals to his nerves all at once, and he is very uncontrollable in that state. And it didn't happen till he was about 38 years old, and they've been taking care of him for 20 years. And it's gotten to the point where he's having a hard time breathing. I'm sure by this point that this man has passed away by now. But as he's there, he's very emotional. He's very sad. It should never be where a father has to bury his own children. He was crying. Very sad. And so when he was done from there, I'm walking him back to his room. I asked him, out of curiosity, are you pleased with your son? If you had to bury your son, if you put him in the grave and he doesn't last, another year or whatever, are you going to be happy of how he lived his life? He said, yes. He said, I love my son dearly. He showed me a picture of him. I want to take care of him and help him. And he lived his life to his knowledge and understanding to the greatest degree that his father could ever ask a son to live. And that's what I want to preach on here this morning, is that us as parents have an obligation to fulfill to our children. And then our children have an obligation to feel to our parents. How many of you here are parents? Stand up. If you're a parent, stand up. Okay, I know you, Mikey, for sure. Okay. Now, if you are a child of parents, I want you to stand up. You had parents in your life. Okay, all right. So that is all of us. Did you spill? Oh, okay. If it spilled on the floor, use like a paper napkin and pick it up because that's Coke. Okay, we can be seated. So all of us stood up. So this is going to be implied into our lives of one, you're going to have to impart something, and second, you're going to have to learn how to please your parents. Let's read in our text here. Mark 1:9, where it starts. It came to pass in those days that Jesus came from Nazareth to Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And immediately coming up from the water, he saw the heavens parting, and the Spirit descend upon him like a dove. Then a voice came from heaven, "You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." So here is a son that did actions. He went and he got baptized. After he's baptized, a voice from heaven, a father told his son, "I am pleased with you." I want to look firstly here together that as children, there is going to be a point in our lives where we have to decide, are we going to follow our parents or disregard what they have put into us? And you can tell the world and the way that it's going that there are very many things that tell you to go against parents' wishes. It used to be that the parents would tell you who you're going to marry. Can you believe living in that day and age? It used to be that dads would tell the children, this is the work you're going to do. This is what the family business is, and this is what you're going to follow. You're going to go to this college. You're going to be doing this. You're going to do that. And the parents held the seniority over the children. But now how many of us know it's not that case anymore, right? What is it? Rise against the power. Come against parents. You see, and you can see on TV or in music all the things that go against children obeying parents. They have no idea what you're going through. You're better than them. There's nothing that you can learn from them. You got to make your own mistakes. Live your life right now. Forget what they say. And there is that disconnect between a child and a dad and a mom. We do not, us as kids, teenagers especially, do not see our parents as someone to please. Look at Ephesians 6, verse 1. It says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." This is right. Obey your parents, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise that it will be well with you and you may live long on the earth. How many times do you hear this on TV, in the news, in music? How many times do you hear someone tell you, obey your father and mother? Hardly ever, if any, will you hear these words, obey your father and mother. Instead, as I said, it's rise against, come against. But this is a promise. The Bible is saying if you learn how to obey, if you learn how to follow your mom and dad, if you listen to their words, then you will live long and you're going to have a happy life. Very many of us do not have good relationships with our parents. Very many of us do not even know sometimes who our parents are, hardly ever talk to them, try to communicate, and there is a big disconnect. And because of that, you are not having a happy life. You are struggling, and you have to see that disconnect. You have to see that curse that's taking place in your life because you don't talk to your parents. There have been struggles, maybe. There have been rejections, hurt, pain. That's all a part of life. But then you allow yourself to be alienated, separated. And because of that, there's a great disconnect. In our text, Mark 1, Jesus Christ gets baptized. In other words, he's following his father father's order. He gets baptized. What does God say about his son? What in our text does he say? Does he say, how dare you? Why did you get baptized? Why did you go down to earth? Why are you there among the people? No, he said, this is my son in whom I am well pleased. Why don't you hear today, if you have a dad that is still living or a mom that is still living, a parent that's around, what if you did something that pleased them? Right? Instead of going against, instead of hurting, instead of rebelling, and instead of, bringing great discord, instead of that, what if you said, I'm going to bless my mom and dad? I'm going to do something. I'm going to make a card. I'm going to get some flowers. I'm going to make a call, or I'm going to go pay a visit. I'm just going to go and say, hey, what's up? I just want to let you know I love and care for you. And I hope that my life is pleasing to you. Why don't we do that here? Why don't we make their lives easier? Instead of coming against, we actually say, I hope I'm making your life a little bit easier. There were some kids at the mall yesterday, the young kids. They were using very profane language. They were yelling and all this stuff. And it almost hit me like if I was their dad or their mom, I would not be pleased in the way that they were acting or even dressed. And I think the majority of parents will look at that and say, that's not a way to live your life. Has to be changed. Let's talk secondly about parents. You can raise your kids and you can raise them incorrectly because they can fall in love with the world instead of falling in love with the things of God. You have to see that as a parent, you are responsible for your children and what you place inside of them. You impart something, you place something inside of their lives. There was a pastor who was talking about his children and how happy he was that they were, one was a surgeon, the other one was an RN in a very prestige hospital, how they were both married, had children, and they were doing wonderful. But the problem was that they were both backslidden. They did not love Jesus Christ. They loved the world, the things of the world. And here is a pastor that is promoting that. And you realize very quickly, you gave them a bad appetite. You taught them how to live in this world, but you forgot how to teach them how to live for Jesus Christ. You gave them a bad appetite. And we can get bad appetites and we can feed that into our children. Here you go. This is how you make money. This is how you handle a relationship. And you are proud of that, but you miss the fact that they're on their way to hell. Teach them incorrectly. There was another pastor that I was talking to, and he said he did not grow up in church. His dad was not saved. At the age of 12, his dad took him to a prostitute. So this is what you do with a girl. And he grew up his entire life with that mentality in his mind. Women are just objects to use till he got saved. And then when he got saved, how many of us know you have to change that mindset? And that is a process as well. But because of a parent what is placed inside of a child's life, that is how they live, and that is what they're going to focus on and try to achieve because of what you placed in them, what you are feeding them, what you're giving them. It's amazing to me how many parents will give their children free time on TVs, video games, or even cell phones when the parent struggles with it. And how much more do you think that your children are going to go ahead and overcome that? You're giving them appetites that are incorrect. And they love the wrong things. There's no morals, no discipline, no input from raising parents. Matthew 18:6. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, if you cause the little one to sin, cause the child to sin. It says, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck, he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Because you didn't take raising your children correctly. It's better if you were drowned in the ocean. There is a penalty. There is a downfall when it comes to raising children incorrectly. You're going to have to deal with the consequences. You're going to deal with the mess. You're going to deal with the attitudes. You're going to deal with the discourse. If you allow the world to come and influence them more than you, you're going to have to deal with the downfall. I have seen parents, again, I was in the El Paso church. The El Paso church has a large number of members. And I know parents who would rather drown than have to deal with their own children because of how they raised them. But you can raise your children correctly. How do you raise your children correctly? First, you have to give them an appetite, a relationship with Jesus Christ. God is first. My father raising me, he said, God is number one. Even before your mom, even before you, before anybody else, I am placing God first. In other words, his relationship with God was more important than me. And my relationship with God is more important than my children. And if your kids see that, if they realize that, and you instill that in them, the chances of them following that rises exponentially. Can anybody think of the prodigal son, right? He came to his senses. He said, I'm going to forget my parents and their teaching. He goes, he finds out the way he's living was incorrect, and he comes back. That's the hope. If you have children that have left, that they come back because you have taught them correctly. You must first, as parents, put your relationship with God first, always. Your relationship with Jesus Christ, your prayer life, your church attendance, your Bible reading, it comes before your children. It has to. Second, after that, is how you treat your husband and wife. That is the second way of teaching your children correctly. This is how I treat my wife. That's where your kids get it from. If you bring home flowers and you give them to your wife, that's going to make a connection to your children and they will do the same. This is how you respect somebody. If you bake or if you make things or you're trying to please your husband, your children are going to realize that. If there is discord, if there is disconnect, if there's breakup, then guess what? That is also going to come on your children as well. I remember my mom and dad would tell me, when we fight, we don't do it in front of you. We do it in our own room. Or they hardly ever fought in any case. There was one time, and it is ingrained in my memory, and I wish I never had it, that my parents fought in front of us, and I thought the world was going to end. It shattered me. It shattered me. And I lived in a godly home where my parents were going to church and they loved Christ. I can't imagine what it's like for children that see their parents who fight constantly, not going to church, not saved, have a bunch of drugs in the house, and they don't know what's going to... I can't even imagine. And then the parents get upset, well, my kid doesn't live right. Well, because of you? Your relationship in your marriage is very important. Then it's how you handle money. How you handle money. There's a budget. Everyone needs to have a budget. Everybody in their... I don't care if you make $1 million a day, you need a budget. Because your children may not make that much money and they need to learn how money works. And that is coming from a parent. How money works. You get $10, you spend $5 on this, you spend $2 on this, and you have to teach your children how to spend money. If you yourself are out of control with your finances, your children are going to follow the same way. You go out and splurge, spend money, do all sorts of things. You have no right to come against your children and say, how dare you do that? Well, Mom, Dad, I do what you do. I am in this situation, you know why? Because you taught me to live like this. You need to learn how to spend money and impart that in your children. Then, of course, it's your job. On time, do good work, all the stuff that comes after that. Morals, how you teach your kids what it means not to steal, not to lie, not to cheat. All of this is in place of parents. And if you're able to impart this, then guess what? If your children follow that, you can now come to the place where you say, I am pleased with how you live. Let's close here. And let's talk to those that may not have parents. I'm not forgetting you. Maybe you don't have children. I'm not forgetting you. Because we must live our life to please our Father who is in heaven. Every single one of us has a father. Not one you can hug and touch and give a high five to, but one that you can talk to. One that is there even through the highs and the lows, even when you're all alone. You have your Father in heaven. I want to prove this to you. Matthew 6:9. How many of you know the Lord's Prayer? Anybody here ever hear the Lord's Prayer before? Have you ever paid attention to the very first line of the Lord's Prayer before in your life? Has it ever came? Because most of the time when we said it before football games, it's just recite full. Let's go out there and tear a head off or something, right? Oh Lord, Lord bless us, not them. That's the way we prayed. Here it is, right here, Matthew 6:9. In this manner, therefore pray, our Father. Whose Father? Your Father. If you're praying this, our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your dad. You know, you can go on and complain, my dad never taught me anything. My parents are good for nothing. They're worthless. They gave me up for adoption. I don't know what you want to say. But there is a God in heaven that he died on the cross. He said, I will love you. I will never forsake you. I'll never leave you. I'll be by your side. There is a dad in heaven that cares for you, and he wants to see how you're going to live your life so he can say, I'm either pleased or I'm displeased. 1 Corinthians 6:20. Therefore you are bought at a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. How do you live your life? Is it pleasing unto the Lord, or is it displeasing? What actions? What choices? Because we read in our text, Jesus Christ surrendered all. He said, that baptized me, right, by John the Baptist. And God says, I am pleased. This is my son, and I am pleased with him. The same Father that Jesus Christ has, you have as well. I remember I played sports my entire young career from high school. And my dad was never really interested. He didn't really come to the games. He was working a lot. I knew he loved me, but he was just working a lot. So he never said, Raymond, you did a good job. The one time my dad said, I am proud of you, is when I answered the call to preach. And as a son, to hear those words from my dad, I mean, it's, if you've never heard that before, if you've never had a dad or a mom that tells you, good job, I'm happy with how you're living, there's something that's being missed. That's why I said at the beginning of the service, some of us have an opportunity to please our parents and work in this area of our lives. If there's a disconnect, fix it. But for some of us, our parents have passed away, and what is done is done. You can't bring them back from the dead. If they're in heaven, then by gosh, I'm so happy. You could work on that relationship even later. But some of us right now, we have no hope. And some of us do have hope. And parents, dads or moms, you need to tell your children that you are happy with them or not happy with them. Your kids need to know how their actions are affecting your life. Son, daughter, good job. Or son, daughter, not good job. I'm not pleased. I'm not pleased. I remember the times that my mom is very vocal. Mikey showed me yesterday. I'm sorry, Seth. He showed me the beginning of one of the recordings. And it wasn't, it wasn't the most pleasing. My mom is like that times two. I remember coming home, and if my mom was mad, she was mad, and I brunt the the worst of it. If I ever got my dad mad, I burned down the house and killed the dog. Because if my dad gets mad, it's very, very rare. That was crazy. But what I do enjoy is that my parents, they did tell me, at least, I'm happy or I'm not happy with how you're living. And I knew when they were going to be happy and when they were going to be unhappy with how I lived. Again, some of us can work on our relationships. Some of us can't. But all of us have a Father in heaven that we must please. Yes, he's saying amen to that. With that being said, let's have every head bowed, every eye closed here this morning. Maybe you're here and you don't know what it means to have a father. You don't have a father who loves you, cares for you, but there's a Father in heaven. His name is Jesus Christ, that he died on the cross for us. As I said, our lives are not our own, but it belongs unto the Lord. Maybe you're here this morning, and you need to be adopted into the stem or vine, the olive tree, olive branch. You need to be adopted into the family here, and you want to. I want you to signify that by an uplifted hand. Say, oh, I see that hand. You can put it down. Anybody else? I want Jesus inside of my life to help me, guide me in this relationship. I need anybody else here, front to back. Maybe you're a backslider. You need to come back to Christ. Signify that by an uplifted hand. Anybody here? Okay. Matt, let's just pray real quick. I know you have your